Attention, il est à l'ennemi.
So yeah, the new Behemoth is pretty freaking awesome. As you can see, I just soloed 3 basically heavy tanks there, 1 land ship, and 2 of the new tanks in this DLC. It can basically 2-shot any heavy tank, and if it's a light tank, it can 1-shot it. It's absolutely ridiculous. So good at taking out other armor. Now, one of the first things that you're probably going to want to know about this tank is how the heck do you get it? How do you get the driver's seat? Well, the tank spawns back at your home base deployment a little ways down the road. So if you see the notice that your Behemoth is spawning, you can spawn back at your deployment and run a little ways down the road and try and get it before anyone else. It's a little bit tricky and people are obviously super interested in driving it, so you may not get it, but that's basically what you got to do if you want to get into it first. Now, the Char 2C has 5 different seats. The first seat controls driving the Behemoth and the main cannon, like you would on, say, the light tank. Then the second seat controls the rear swivel turret, which has got probably the biggest field of view out of any of the other turrets in the tank. Then seat 3 is the front machine gunner, so he can basically plow the road for you, deal with infantry threats straight in front of you, while you as the driver can deal with armored threats. And then seats 4 and 5 are machine guns mounted on the side of the tank, so they can deal with infantry threats to your left or right. It doesn't have any direct anti-air capabilities, however you can take out planes with your primary cannon, though you can't aim it very high, so the planes really have to dive down low in order for you to get them. The biggest learning curve with driving this tank, especially if you're familiar with other tanks, is the turn radius on this thing. It's absolutely ridiculous. You can get this thing stuck, as I have multiple times, trying to take it down the city roads or in just narrow corridors. This is a tank that probably does best circling the map, generally speaking. Most other tanks you can do all right pushing them onto the point, sort of clearing out buildings and stuff like that. And I did push this onto the point, but it's difficult and you really have to plan out your route ahead of time. You can't just sort of turn this thing on a dime and back out of a location. It turns so slowly that you really have to treat it more like it is an actual land ship. You have to steer it as if it was a ship. My guess is that most people on their first try with this Behemoth are probably going to get it stuck and spend most of their time in a highly ineffective situation trying to drive this tank around like it was a normal tank. Once you realize that you've sort of wasted your time with the Behemoth once, you're really going to want to try and do better the next time, and that is really keeping this thing out in big open fields and the plains, and rather than taking it into the city. Now, your gunners do best when they have a lot of area around them. Sadly though, if you are circling around a point, one of the gunners on either your left or right side is not going to have much to shoot at, but the rest of them probably will. Now, because this vehicle is so slow and has pretty bad maneuverability, it's not necessarily going to be a great Behemoth to quickly push onto a point and capture it. Like the airship can move around fairly quickly and get onto different points and cap them down, this is going to be a lot slower. I would say its best benefit for the team is the ability to absolutely obliterate any other armor on the field. Now, if you are in an enemy tank and you see the Behemoth, your best bet is to try and get behind it, because this front turret has like what I would say maybe a 240 degree turn radius, so it can't see directly behind it. So that's your best bet. That being said, the Behemoth can always turn and shoot your tank. And if I get one shot into you with the primary cannon, even if you've got the heaviest tank, you're going to be disabled. One more shot and you're dead. So it doesn't really give you a lot of room for error if you're fighting this thing in another tank. It absolutely obliterates them. Now, one round the enemy team was totally dominating the air, and they had some bombers up that kept hitting me. They kept keeping their distance from me, basically flying so high I couldn't hit them, and they were doing a good amount of damage to me, and they were able to take down my Behemoth pretty easily without me being able to do much about it. Now that situation of course is only doable if the enemy team is dominating the air. If you do get a behemoth and your tankers decide to spawn in a tank, they might want to consider going with the anti-air variant of the artillery truck, as that will help clear the skies for you and you can deal with the rest of the armor. Provided that you're actually a good tanker and gunner, you do still need skill to use this behemoth. If you really like driving normal tanks in Battlefield 1, those skills will directly translate into this behemoth. Again, a bit of a learning curve from the maneuvering of the tank, but firing the main turret and stuff like that is all pretty much the same. Now you may have noticed from a few clips here that the primary turret can be disabled. This is done by hitting it directly. So if you are in an enemy tank and the behemoth is bearing down on you, aim for the primary turret. If you can disable it, that buys you 30 seconds before it self-repairs and becomes available again. So that is, again, another really good tactic for dealing with the behemoth. Of course, if you're an infantry, say an assault player, and you've got your AT rocket gun, you should be aiming for the vulnerable parts of the tank. I don't yet know all the vulnerable areas. I think the big sort of ventilation unit on top of the tank is a vulnerable area. Obviously the turret is, the main turret. I imagine the back turret is as well. It's also possible that the treads can be disabled also to further reduce the mobility on this tank, but I need to test it out a bit more. And despite this vehicle having pretty much 360 degrees of guns on it, it doesn't mean it can be completely self-sustained. It's going to do best when it's got infantry support and other armor support. It's going to draw a lot of fire, and that's going to allow your teammates to take out those targets that are shooting you from long range. There's only so many guns on this thing, and especially while it's moving, they're going to be a little bit trickier to aim. Now, one cool thing about the tank, though, especially compared to the way other tanks work, is that because the suspension on it is so incredibly long, it gives you a very smooth ride. So generally speaking, you should be able to keep this tank moving while firing the main turret pretty accurately. And I hope that goes for the secondary gunners as well. And it's kind of important to keep this tank moving so that people can't zero in on the vulnerable parts of the tank, and just so that people can't sneak up on you or get an easy shot in general. Now, when it comes to the cool factor of this behemoth, I think it's one of my favorites, just because this thing can actually get right up in the middle of the battlefield, and you can stand next to it and just witness its immense size and destructive power. Standing on it as an infantry is fun, probably not the best tactic out there, but just seeing it up close, breaking down walls and blasting away other tanks with its giant cannon is really awesome, and no other behemoth has had this sort of up close and personal effect before. And I mean, sure, the armored train can get pretty close to you, or you can walk up to it if you want, but it's on rails. It's never going to surprise you with the direction that it takes. This behemoth is totally off rails, totally user controlled, and I really got to give it to DICE for not taking the easy route and making the vehicles on rails or controlling them too much. You have total freedom with the Char 2C, and it just adds such a cool element to these battles. Fighting against it, of course, is always risky, but that's part of the fun as well. The thing is just loaded with turrets, so sneaking up on it is going to be difficult. But as infantry, you do have the ability to sort of take shots and change location. That's going to be your best bet when fighting this thing. Now, when you destroy the behemoth, it does blow up in a pretty spectacular fashion. Sure, it's no dreadnought explosion, but for something that can actually be in the middle of the battlefield, it's a pretty sizable explosion, definitely visible from an aircraft. Anyway, I plan on covering all the cool new stuff that's coming out in this DLC. This is the first map of 3 that we're going to get to play during CTE. If you haven't downloaded CTE and you have Premium and a PC, definitely go for it, because this is an awesome way to sort of preview what's coming up next. As always, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it gives you a good idea of what to do on your first time that you get the Char 2C. And I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.